Hey, Adam Slawson, welcome to Voices of Elevate. The Elevate mission is to raise the frequency, and we can't do that if we are holding anything in our stagnation in our bodies.
Yeah.
So you have the ideal workshop, don't you, to help us clear some of that deep, stagnant emotional crap that kind of blocks us from raising our frequency.
Yes.
You want
Yeah,
to
I
tell
do.
me about it?
It's called Emosh Pit, the Rage Rave. And it's important to understand that rage stands for radical access to greater energy. And
Love
actually,
that.
the workshop is that the anger is there and present, but it's not only about anger. It's about enabling people to take the fear out of emotional expression. Right. And so what we do is we take people on a journey. There's 5 stages. So if people have done 5 rhythms before, there's not 5 rhythms, but there's 5 stages to it, which is ignite, invoke, rage, euphoria, integration. Okay. And so what we do, the main stage, or the one that takes up the most of the time, is the invoke stage. And so what we do is essentially we go on a journey of enabling a person's nervous system to soften into the experience, to trust the experience. So we do vulnerability sharing circles initially, and then we go into around. Well, I won't give too much away for those because people are going to come. So, but we do that, and then we go into the invoke stage where it's essentially like shaking up a Coke can. So we want, I'm there and I'm facilitating, and in essence mildly triggering people like through come on, let's go. And there's other things, that nuances that go on and involved in it, and the idea is to feel that fizz inside our body, which is, in Tai Chi terms, it would be like the chi or the energy rising, and most of that bit's done in as much silence as possible, so a person can be really really with their experience of the energy rising and getting kind of emotive, of course, and then to be really aware of what they're doing. And so that then they can say, oh, if they're feeling triggered, to be like, okay, I can be with this and I can take the fear out of it. And once they've done that, we go into the rage release, which is the radical access to greater energy. And there's a facilitated big release of emotion collectively. And so obviously, whichever gender you identify as, it's like, so those identify men, seeing those identify as women, and in between, all sharing and expressing themselves in that way. And ultimately, it takes the fear out of, enables a person to sit with the overwhelm of their emotions and then release it, and actually actively release it and be witnessed in doing that. And then you go into the integration phase, because then after the euphoria phase, sorry, because you feel the effects of the big release. And then you go into the integration, because you don't want to send out like shaking up Coke cans into the street, right? So you want people all chilled, and by the end of it, you're absolutely blissed out because you've gone through this experience.
Oh, amazing. So I'm guessing that it really helps release stuff instantly to feel better instantly, but also is it helping people kind of connect with emotions in the body and maybe feel more comfortable connecting with those and expressing those as they come in, generally in life, like a tool?
Yes. So ultimately, the practice is about, and I would, as I talk people through, is to identify with the sensations of the emotion, not necessarily the feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
so people, when someone says like, I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm even happy, or what we're doing when as soon as we label it, we come up into our head, and it actually takes us out of the experience of it. And the label that we have for any emotion is based on our past. Like we would talk, well, that's, the feeling of anger is like, oh, I expressed that, and that's anger, and it's like I can label it as that, which is great. But it's important to be able to do that. But then what if you want to be able to get the radical access to greater energy, to be able to sit in the sensation of it? It's like in Gabor Mate's work, Compassionate Inquiry. It's like when you don't give it a name and you go, oh, I'm feeling fizzy, or I'm feeling, and you describe the sensations. It's like holding open the wound to an extent, and then more energy can come through it. And that's the radical access to greater energy. So my facilitation in it is like, how does it feel in your, like, how does it feel? Are you noticing the sensations? Can you, etc., etc. And I'm also telling people to be with it, don't run away from it, don't express it too early, kind of thing. And we go from there.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just watching it, because sometimes I know that I can feel a feeling and it could be anger, but when I really sit with it, actually it's not, it's because I'm sad, and I'm sad about that thing, but it's made me angry, you know,
Mm.
or vice versa. I can feel, you know, sad, and then actually when I sit with that feeling, I can flip it, go, actually no, that's you know. So sometimes the feelings aren't necessarily the sort of on the spot feeling isn't always the underlying feeling, is it? You know.
No, for sure. Like the anger, particularly, is generally a secondary emotion because
Yeah.
we've been like we feel threatened somehow or not seen in some way, and then and particularly like for those that identify as men, like big boys don't cry has
I was
conditioned
just
us
going to
out of
say that it's
crying. Yeah.
almost it's more manly, isn't it, to get angry about a feeling. I feel a
Mm.
feeling, so I'm going to show anger about it
Yeah.
because I'm a man, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, when you get to the crux of it, it's actually because they're sad or they're feeling pain of some
Mm.
sort. But then to be authentically in that pain is quite difficult because we
Very
haven't
difficult.
taught
Yeah.
men how to be that and express that, have we?
Yeah. Exactly.
It
And
often comes, yeah.
yeah, so exactly, and also then, so for those that identify as women in the context of good girls should be seen and not heard. Like so
Mm.
often, where those that identify as women have an express like difficult expressing anger, and it comes out in sadness instead because it's more socially acceptable for women to cry, which is all rubbish, of course, because we should be
And
acceptable for
also,
anyone.
it's like a control drama of having someone help you with your emotion as a little girl. If you cry, somebody hugs you and says, there, it'll be okay. So it's
Yeah.
almost the way that we're used to receiving support with our
Yes,
emotions.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah, yeah. And so the idea with all the work that I do as a self-mastery coach and then with Plight Club is enabling people to go into their parental and social conditioning,
Mm.
understand that that is what's creating their limiting beliefs, what's creating their behaviors, and in essence the goal with all of my work is that to enable a person to I use a thing called the LAM method, which I've created, which is liberate, which is notice what you're noticing, pay attention more, raise your awareness, and acceptance, which is accepting the energy of the emotions. And so whether that's a good emotion, quote unquote good emotion, or quote unquote bad emotion, then we need to to enable ourselves to sit with the feeling, not try and change it, not try and judge it, not try and do anything with it, because the body will just sort it out for you. As soon as we
Mm.
try and feel it, then I label it, do all these things, then it moves us out of the experience. And each time we let go of some of our condition, I use the analogy of a hose pipe. Like we have kinks in our energetic hose pipe, which is our parental and social conditioning. And each time we let go of a kink and we allow ourselves bodies to feel it, more energy can move through our body. And that provides the access to radical access to greater energy.
Yeah, I mean, so you know what? It's great because it sounds like it's very in the body stuff that you do. Because what I find as well is people they feel a feeling, say they're having a bad day, they've woken up, they're feeling very heavy, very low, and they'll spend all day trying to attach a story to the feeling. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, why am I feeling like this? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? You know, and oh, is it, you know, and sometimes we can get too up in our head
Yeah,
about
for sure.
how we're feeling.
So
And so,
a
yeah.
useful tool for that is like if you catch yourself asking why am I feeling this, switch it and ask where am I feeling this.
Mm.
And so because that brings you into the body, and then don't try and say is this anger, is it, just try, okay, are you located somewhere in your body, hypothetically it's in your heart, and you're like, okay, and then it's kind of, does it have a color, does it have a
Mm.
texture, does it have a shape, whatever it might be, and then you can, and it's almost you triangulate the feel it the emotion in time and space, ultimately the energy, and it witnesses it, right,
Mm.
in short. And then if you just don't try and change it, don't do anything with it, just witness it, then highly likely it will move. And the movement doesn't necessarily mean it's like a full-on cry. It could be, it doesn't mean a full-on cry. It could be just like a yawn or a stretch or a deep breath in, and it's just like
Mm.
and it moves, and you'll know when that's happened. And then all of a sudden your mood's completely different. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, just that, just actually sometimes just adding some conscious awareness to it and then just breathing it away. I think this is why I really enjoy practices like Qigong in the morning, because you can wake up feeling different on different days, but just having a little bit of gentle breath and movement is just
Yeah.
enough to clear anything. Or if I've
Yeah.
been subjected to people in a day, negative
Often happens.
behaviors, yeah, negative behaviors, or just being around sort of people and hustle and bustle, I just get home and have a really good shake with some deep breaths. It can be as simple as that sometimes, can't it? Just good shake, few deep breaths, and I'm back to me.
With that, and I would always, that is definitely a good thing to do, but I would always, and to the people I work with, certainly suggest that there's a moment before that to sit with and not do anything with it, to sit with the feeling and notice the kind of, I feel agitated by this, and just be with the agitation, not try and change it, and just take the fear out of the agitation. Because most people
I love that.
Don't want it. And the shaking is like, I don't want this in me. And it's like your body's saying, I don't want it. Whereas if you do the thing before, then go, okay, and now and this is what the Polite Club and also the Emosh Pit's about, is that the witness of it, if life deals it and you manage to feel it, you heal it. If you don't feel it, you don't heal it. And so in that, it's like that part where you're in silence with your own emotion and you're just enabling yourself to hold it and take the fear out of it, or feel the fear associated with it, and it lifts. And then sometimes when you've been exposed to people, as you say, and you're a bit stressed or whatever, the feeling of tension in your body is uncomfortable, right? So then have an emotive practice, then shake, or then shout into a pillow, or then do whatever, but you're doing it consciously, and you're doing it, and you don't miss the opportunity in which is in the middle,
to sit with a feeling.
Yeah,
because actually there's great power in being able to feel any feeling and being comfortable feeling any feeling, isn't there? I think I think probably that's one of the most powerful tools that any of us can come to terms with, because a lot of people don't feel okay not feeling okay. We've had quite a sort of nanny society where not really, we haven't grown up in a culture of war and famine, or the majority of us have had quite comfortable lives in lots of ways, and so when it's uncomfortable, that's alien to us, and it can feel really scary. And I think when we just learn to be comfortable with those feelings, it's just
there's decadence is killing us is one is a phrase that I've used a fair amount, but to be able to understand that the whole of our education system, I believe, is incorrectly created, or has been, certainly when I was there, and it's getting better. But all a human needs to enable themselves to do is navigate their life through feeling. How are you feeling on a given day? If you're feeling aligned and on purpose, on your purpose, and just loving life, that's your natural way of being. If you're feeling angry, shame, guilt, fear, that's all been programmed into us. And so what life is constantly trying to do, and there's a phrase which I've it was Peter Cronin I heard it from originally, but I've added a bit to it, which is life brings you people and situations to reflect opportunities to be free. Right?
And it's great when you see it all as an opportunity, like, oh, I'm feeling triggered, like, yay, another lesson.
And exactly that. And every time you can sit and, as we said, feel it, you it's like taking a kink out the hose pipe, and more energy can move through you, and you start to magnetize. And that's what liberate plus acceptance equals magnetism, that your reality starts to come to, the one that's meant for you starts to come to you more quickly. And then you start to see life when you've done it for a while, at least, you start to see life as an exploration rather than searching for something. And you're just going, oh, life's all right, that feels kind of fun. And you're exploring life as opposed to trying to get something or get to a destination or do all those things. And as Alan Watts says, there is a deep, deep wisdom in insecurity. And so if you can enable yourself, and that's very much what Emosh Pit's about, to enable people to sit in the insecurity, you will see the wisdom that's in it. But you have to be able to do that first. And that's what I coach people on, and that's what this practice is about, and ultimately the brand Polite Club's about as well.
So how did you stumble into this area?
Anxiety was the first thing. So most of my life up to the age of 35, a bit later maybe, I used to suffer from bouts of anxiety that were pretty bad, and the last one that I remember was I how old, I don't know, it doesn't matter how old it was, but it was quite a long time ago now. And I didn't sleep. I slept for about 2 hours a night for 3 weeks. I lost 7 kilos of weight, and I entered this weird shade of gray, right? And someone said to me, that's not normal. That there may be something there. And they didn't say it as bluntly as that, but and I was like, okay. And that journey the whole thing lasted about 6 months, but it sent me on a journey of listening more to life. And the job I was doing at the time, I was a manager consultant, and the way that we did this thing called design thinking, which is essentially you go into businesses and talk to their customers, you do some research, and then you come up with ideas and you test and learn, right? And so what I did was flip that onto myself, and I said, I'm going to make me the customer of my life, and I'm going to try loads of stuff and see what happens, right? And I did, and the journey with regards to vulnerability started there. And so I went on this, and I think it's been a 15-year journey on trying various different things and going really deep into the rabbit hole of shadow work and various different things. And it all started, 2 points. Was one, I was in a lift with somebody, and there was just me and another person in the lift. And I was like, I feel, that awkward thing. It's like, should I say something? Should we, and then in my head, it was like, what if I break wind? What if that's going to be really embarrassing? Oh my God. And my whole of my body, and I started sweating. I was like, okay, just say something. I was like, and I was like, there's the fear that's there. And I just said, no, I think it was like nice shoes or nice jacket or something. And I genuinely meant it, and it was there. And then what happened was the lift went bing, and I walked out, and they said thanks as I left. But what I noticed in me was this wave of energy coming over me, and I was like, wow, I felt so free, or much freer, just on that one little thing. And I was like, what is that about? Like, I want to do more of that. And it's obviously vulnerability means the ability to look into your wounds. And so again, with the wisdom of insecurity, I felt that fear and I did it anyway. And and so from there, and I've just compounded that belief over years. And then the way Polite Club started was I was like, well, I'm going to go to a men's circle at some point. I heard about that. Well, I actually started a men's circle with a bunch of men. And it was the first session, and we all sat around, and bear in mind, we'd never met really before. I was sitting there, and we all started sharing. And then at some point, I just felt this wave of energy come over me. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but the world needs more of it. Now I do. You could say it's love, it's spirit, it's whatever it is. It was moving through me at that moment. And I just felt alive. I felt love, and I felt connection to these other men. And I'd literally met them for about an hour. And I was like, that's because I was, and then this is all in hindsight, because I was talking about how I was feeling. I felt really seen and heard, etc., etc. And so that was the birth of Polite Club. And that was the birth that started me on this, on the journey of becoming a self-mastery coach and helping people understand what I've just said, and embodying new programming, which is clean programming in essence, because the stuff that most people aren't aware of is that we're generational trauma gets passed down, and it's like, and from the moment you're born to the moment you decide to actually, I'm going to do something about this, you're living a conditioned life. If you're not aware of your behaviors, they're not yours, they're somebody else's, and they've been programmed into you. And so if you want to live your own authentic life, then you need to go onto the journey of looking into your shadow, which is obviously what I help with, and go those things. And if you don't do that, then you're going to just stay in. You might be happy as you are. That's cool. But if you're not, then there's something to look into, and that's where it all began.
Oh, it's fascinating when you start delving into the ancestral stuff, though. And it's just simple things like I was really working with poverty consciousness last year, and through Akashic record clearings and different things, and the body code and all that kind of stuff, it kept coming back that it was related to my great grandmother in Ireland, and we're talking potato famine, and and so that psychology isn't relevant now in this reality, but it's been passed down through my family, and now I'm carrying this poverty mindset from the potato famine.
And who would, like, in traditional society, most people would be like, you sound mad. Akashic records, or anything. And it's like, I know the Akashic records, I've had mine read and done, and in the same principle as you're saying. And it's like, okay, but like the world we live in is broken. It's not, the society is not well. Like, to try and fit into a society that's not well, there's a quote, I don't know who said that quote, but it's madness. Right. Yeah. But the ability to be able to understand that we're souls having a human experience, and we're infinite beings that come back, life repeats itself, and that has happened generationally, which you mentioned, is, even if what I've just said is complete and utter horseshit and not true, Like
But
there's
it's
two,
worked for you.
yeah, there's two
And this has
realities here.
worked for me.
Yeah,
So
there's two
who cares
realities.
if it's horseshit? It
Yeah,
works.
exactly. Yeah, there's two realities. One is there's lots of anxiety, fear, shame, guilt, anger, and then the other reality is there's lots more love and peace and emotional flow, and both are made up technically. So I'm just going to pick the one on the right, like, you know,
Yes.
and rather than the other, and don't think about it much more than that. And for those that are naysayers with regards to spirituality, I can talk quantum physics as well if you like, and
Yeah.
they agree. So
Yeah. You
however
can
you want.
start quoting Einstein and things like
Yeah,
that. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe there is something in it. Oh, and Tesla was talking
yeah.
about it too. Oh, okay.
And people then, but and there's no, and I was very problem solving, rational in the context of needing data to believe something, and our ego does. Like our ego has been programmed to like, okay, we need data and evidence to be able to feel safe, which is totally fair enough. And so
Yeah.
what the work I do and going to things like Emosh Pit, to your festival, will enable you to go into situations and notice that it's safe to be who you are and express yourself in whichever way. And then like places like Emosh Pit, and then if you go out bigger, places like your festival, they're essentially containers for emotional expression, right? And for people to be authentic and be themselves and not get off their nut on various different substances. And, you know, and that, don't get me wrong, that's fun, but you're not necessarily, if you're using it to mask something, then it's different, right? And so spaces like your festival, Emosh Pit,
And
my
also
work.
people become reliant on those to be able to connect. And then the connection that they're having isn't an authentic connection. And it just, it's not as soul nourishing in the same way. Yeah.
No, there's a fact like alcohol particularly is you know, I've never had any problems with alcohol apart from that. I used to just, you know, for all of my 30s from Thursday to Sunday I'd be drinking basically, you know, classic binge drinker, going out and partying, having a good time for but also not, you know, the depths of my relationship.
Having a good time with my head down the toilet, tasting the vodka.
Yeah,
You know.
but at that time, yeah, I've been there a few times. But at the time, the depth of my relationships, I thought it was, you know, they were great. Like it was fine, and I was having a nice time. But since the point of being able to sit with my emotions, being able to express who I am, be more receptive, and be more open, and just literally. And there's a phrase I use, which is, if you're not expressing how you're feeling, you are literally creating a reality that was never meant to exist. And it's true, and how can you? You know, and that what I've said becomes so powerful when you start to do it, because it's like it gets to a point where it's completely pointless to not say how you feel, for you and for also people around you, because you've both been brought into your lives to reflect back to each other parts of you that aren't free or have opportunities to be free.
Well, I found that the reason that I drank alcohol and took copious amounts of drugs, particularly ecstasy, was to put me in a state where I could dance and I could socialize. And I think it's because I had a real issue showing up authentic confidently. And I think that I use those medicines to help me along the way. And I think the more internal work that I've done with myself and controlling my emotions and feeling my emotions and actually not needing to go out and get trashed because I feel shit in myself, you know, because I'm not feeling balanced and okay. And it was that old, it was like you're feeling a feeling and I want to numb it. Was kind of what I used to do. And since I've been comfortable in my own feelings and being able to process them more healthily, and I don't feel the need to do that. In fact, now I look at that and it feels damaging. Like, why would I want to damage my body and my mind and my spirit in that way? It feels counterproductive now. But for a long time, you know, I did milk it for a long time.
Me too.
And I did have fun. But now the fun that I have feels like more fun.
And it's like, and I with regards to going out, I never really had anything. I didn't feel like I was running away from anything, but I think I was chasing opportunities to express how I felt. Like, so for men, for me, I'll just speak from my point of view, that I know that like sex was a point for me where I could be vulnerable. like, you know, in the act of having sex, and be seen as me, and in that, and I still wasn't talking about how I was feeling, but I was perhaps expressing myself. And obviously with regards to a man, the point of ejaculation, you are like as vulnerable as you can be, and you're open, and all that kind of thing. And I think I was chasing those opportunities to do that, and what comes with that is obviously alcohol and doing it. And I overall had a really fun time, apart from every night. Most weeks I'd have mild anxiety, and then I'd go kickboxing to get rid of the anxiety, rinse, repeat. And then every 3 to 6 months I would have essentially an emotional breakdown, which I didn't realize is what it was when I was doing it. And then until someone pointed out the pattern to me, and I was just like, oh shit, really? And then I noticed, and then when you, particularly with alcohol, like I used to have I didn't realize I had a brand, which was, I'd start, you know, go out to the pub after work, and I'd be, you know, there till the end pretty much with a drink in my hand. And then when I did the same thing but didn't have a drink, people were like, why aren't you drinking? What are you doing? And I found that really hard and really challenging, because it was a threat to that I was going, well, people aren't going to think I'm fun and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm like, well, I've done it enough. I did one point, buy a beer, pour it, well, maybe drank it, and then filled it up with water. And then so the rest of the night I looked like I was drinking a beer. And it was like, well, that got ridiculous. I just said no. And now I like, well, for better or worse, I do still like the taste of wine and whatnot, but it just has it when I'm out and I'm in a social situation and I drink, it actually disconnects me. I don't feel anywhere near as connected as I do without it. So it's like, well, it's not worth it. So why bother?
Well, what happened with me is I had my fourth, was it the third? No, I think it's my third child. I had my third child. And so I was pregnant and then breastfeeding. So during those times in my life, I haven't had alcohol. And then with my third child, so he's 13 now, I also discovered raw food. So I went on this kind of raw food diet. And so without me noticing, my vibration had actually expanded. And then I went to a birthday party, had a glass of Prosecco, and instantly felt depressed. Like I didn't realize how high I was until I had this glass and went low. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But of course, I try everything a few times just to check. Was that just an off day? And it happened every time. And I thought, well, it's just, alcohol just is not serving me in any way now. So what's the point? You know, that's the conclusion I came to.
And a nice analogy I use for that is, like, if you think of like an old Volvo car that will go forever, like you put a diesel into it and it will just happily chug along forever, right? But if you were to put diesel into a Formula One car, it's going to break down. Like, you know, and once you've gone on the journey of, you know, refining, and I mean allowing energy to move through your body, i.e. expressing your emotions and stuff, you get to a point where it's like, actually my vehicle, which was a soul having a human experience, and our body is like a car, the equivalent of, and we're riding around in it, and I want to like optimize how I'm interpreting the world, right? And so when I have alcohol, I don't interpret the world how I would like to, particularly the day after, more so. And so, and then the same applies with food. Like, you know, my diet it wasn't bad necessarily before, but if I eat rubbish food, I feel rubbish and I really notice it. And it's like, so it's a bit of a, you know, not a catch-22, but it's a bit of a, you know, one of the, in a way, downsides ish to like, doing the work and going into your history and processing lots of stuff.
You can't go back, can you?
You can't go back, and you get a lot more sensitive, and it's like, oh, okay, so you have to just go, well, I can't really drink alcohol anymore, and I just have to grieve that and let it go. And
I'm a bit like that with so I did a 2-week juice fast at the beginning of last month, and then was really, really super clean. And then I was so tired last week that I ended up nibbling some of the kids' chocolate, but not just a little bit, like almost a bit like a gannet, like, oh, this is so nice, I haven't had anything like this for ages. And then hence the cough. I then the next day I ended up getting really poorly, like my body was kicking it out through a cold, you know, and mucus, and it's still lingering, but I can't even have those yummy things anymore because I've made myself too clean, you know, that now as soon as I have it, my body reacts really badly.
It's exactly like the same as a
Yeah.
Formula One car and a Volvo. Essentially, they
You
do the
eat it
same.
every day, then your body's just used to like chugging through that. And
Yeah, they do the same thing, don't they? They
yeah.
move a person round, right? But when it's kind of the ones that's been tweaked and those things, it breaks down more easily. Like it's, you know, and it goes quicker and it's more nimble and those kind of things, but it does break down more easily. So when you input like, you know, for me now, if I have a glass of red wine, I have a tiny bit if I'm having, you know, having a steak or something or now, but if I have like a glass of it, it's like, it just doesn't do me any service at all. So
I know it's a shame because I do really love the taste. There's nothing
delicious.
nicer than just sitting down with a glass of red wine.
Alcohol-free red wine, still rubbish.
Is it? I've never tried. Actually,
doesn't taste good. Well, alcohol-free white wine's all right, but
I was in a pub one day and I had because what I used to do is if I was with my friends, I would just have, if they were having gin and tonics, I would just have a tonic in a gin glass and I'd feel part of the gang,
I'd do
you
that.
know.
Nice.
And then that was only £1 or something. And then one day I was in the pub and they said, "Oh, we do have non-alcoholic gin." And I said, "Oh, I'll try that." But it was the same price.
Yeah,
Thought,
it is a bit
it
of a
was nearly £5 for a glass, and it didn't even have alcohol in it. I was like, "Oh, I'll just stick to the tonic, I think." Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. It is that's actually a thing of the injustice thing of like, and that's a bit of a rip off. It's something that I'm personally working on, and it's a way of doing the more subtle work of releasing the parental and social conditioning. So as an example, I was like we were traveling and it was on a motorway and we bought 2 coffees and it's like 2 coffee, £10 please. And I was like, you what? And I used to be like, oh my God, that's such a rip-off in my head. I'd be like, that's such a rip-off. But whereas I've now like undone the reaction enough to be like, and this time I reacted and I went, oh, I feel really lucky to be able to buy those coffees. You know, that I'm earning enough, and it's the same situation but completely different outcome, right? And so and it takes a person's conscious awareness initially for me to like you know, I can think back 4 times over the last couple of months where we bought coffees and I felt it's been expensive and had a pang of like, oh God, that's horrible, that don't rip me off. And then this time it was like, there was no kind of pang of that. It was because I'd sat with the feeling and allowed myself to switch it to like, I feel grateful to have enough money to
turning
buy
everything to gratitude is just, I mean, there's the highest vibration right there, isn't it? And just our mindset towards anything, not just the price of things, but anything in our life could be tweaked in that same way, can't it?
It gets to a point where you start to there is absolutely no point in wanting life any way than exactly as it is, and that might be a bitter pill to swallow for some people because they are in challenging situations, which is not knocking their challenging.
I mean, God, I've been in the most challenging situations, but I think that's why I think it's made me so grateful. Like I can survive anything, you know. I'm so grateful that I always end up in a good position afterwards, you know, or something like that.
Or just to remember that life is happening for you, not to you. And so there's a lesson in everything, that even buying a coffee is an example, there's a lesson. And so if you can liberate yourself by raising your self-awareness, of course, and noticing that, oh, actually there's an emotional reaction going on in my body. And you know, if it there's a phrase in shadow work, which is if it affects you, it's you. And if it informs you, it's them. So if something comes up for you, it's like, oh, I can be grateful that I'm really, really like something's making me really angry. And it's like, okay, I'm grateful that for that thing making me angry is like, oh, okay, because that's liberated that there's some belief there that I need to, it's like a fire alarm going off in your body. And you go, okay, I'm listening to the fire alarm and I'm going to allow whatever's causing the thing to be removed. And so, and then the fire alarm will stop ultimately.
Yeah, because otherwise we're just fire meeting fire all the time, aren't we? And nobody taking responsibility of their own fire.
Yes, and that's the big problem in the world is where people point the finger and go, "You made me feel," or
well, nobody wants to be wrong, do they? And no one wants to lose face and be vulnerable enough to say, actually, I can see that I was wrong there, and I really appreciate your patience with me while I was bit, you know. And actually, I think as we're becoming more aware of this, I'm really enjoying practicing this with my friends who are also on this kind of conscious journey, and we're really getting so deep with each other. You know, I had a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago and I said, you know, you really pissed me off with that thing. And he said, why? And I said, well, you know, because you did this and you did that and you did this, you know. And he said, he was, you know, lucky enough to, he said, where are you feeling that in your body? And then when I said, he said, yeah, I think that maybe I was feeling that, and that's why I projected that onto you. And and then you start having these really good. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been single for the last 5 years, but all my friendships are really helping me practice this conscious communication, and so that when I do finally meet somebody else, maybe one day if I've got time, then I feel like it's a much better
Yeah.
setting for a relationship, isn't it?
And in that interaction, if you had, rather than say you did this and it made me feel all right, and just saying it enabled me to feel, rather than it made
Yes.
me, because then you're bringing up some, and then you're into this situation where you're the master of your destiny rather than a victim of history. And and for speaking from my own experience, but obviously, and I'm a man, so that's how I identify, is that in the conversation, and I'm in a heterosexual relationship, in the men, and I just speak from my own point of view, I used to be a problem solver, and when my partner used to come to me with something, I would be like, suggest solutions almost straight off the bat, right? And it took me ages to be able to learn to meet her and other people in their experience, and not try and put my experience into their experience, and
And
just
that's a common one as well. People think, because they think they know what you're feeling, because they think it's like the time they felt like that one once or something, and they're not actually listening to what you're feeling. It's projecting their own story onto your story.
exactly, yeah. And then having the there's a phrase which is win. So remember, if you want to win, remember win. And it's I wonder, imagine, notice. So if you start a conversation, when someone says something to you, and your response should be one of the three: I wonder, imagine, notice. I wonder if, what's that like, right? I notice that that's causing you tension, or I imagine that must be quite difficult for you. And that's it. And to be able to be with another person in their experience without infecting it with your experience is I think it's one of the most noble things a person can do. And it's challenging. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah, because all of this, it's okay being conscious, but it's practice, because we are all products of the ancestral mindsets and behaviors that, we're having to really consciously be intentional about how we're speaking to each other. And sometimes we fall back into old patterns.
Of course we do. And the way I phrase that to people, like, the first thing is that imagine we've got behaviors in our brain that's like a record's playing, and it's been playing for so long that the needle has created a groove which is really big, right? And so when the work that I do is help people take the needle out and place it down somewhere else to create a new behavior, but then initially that groove is tiny, right? And so when something in life jogs the record player, it goes boom and goes very easily back into the big groove, right? And so all you have to do is take it out and put it into the new groove and keep repeating, and eventually the other groove gets big enough that it can't get knocked out, in essence. And the other thing to
it's
say,
like brain training as well, isn't it? Habit training, all these things take time to implement so that they become an unconscious habit, rather consciously being a habit. It does take time.
They become
We
a
need to be
new
really patient with ourselves and not expect ourselves to be perfect overnight.
patience, compassion, and simplicity is definitely that's really important. And I think one of the things to say, and this is because I'm doing a talk at Elevate, right, as well, and this is part of the talk, is to understand that a lot of everyone in the world, but particularly people in the spiritual community, they're walking around with, like, and I call it a martini glass in their body. And it's like, imagine that you've got the chakra points and the heart being the connection between matter and spirit. And a lot of people are walking around with this martini glass, which is, everything's love and light and beautiful, and I don't get angry and I don't do those things. And it's like, don't be wrong. It's like, okay, if that's your way of being, sure. But it's natural for a free human to have all of those different emotions. And what that indicates to me is that they've got blockages in their lower chakras, which is where shame, guilt, etc. is stored. And that needs processing. And the thing to say, a regulated nervous system isn't one that doesn't get upset. And a regulated nervous system is one that can choose to get upset and witness themselves being upset and allow it to happen, and then go back to normal, because it's important to recognize that something has threatened me, and that's, I don't like that, and go, no. And it's okay to do that, for sure. But then not drag it on for ages.
And also healthily expressing, like, not punching your wife because you didn't, you know, that kind of, but you can still show anger, but you don't, it's how it's expressed as well, isn't it? And finding that healthy balance of expressing your emotions. I see it a lot in I homeschool my kids, and in the homeschool communities there's this, you know, rightly so, there's this whole gentle parenting philosophy, and I've always found it bizarre because I'm very, you know, when you've got a baby, I'm very gentle with the baby, you know, that they need nurturing and nourishment and closeness. But then when you have a toddler, again, it's like there's ways of explaining things so that they don't have tantrums and things like that. But what I'm seeing is a bunch of children that have really bad behavioral issues because they are spinning their mum around their little finger, because mum's just like, oh no, trying not to, you know, raise the voice, and but you know, being a gentle mum, and actually sometimes kids need to be told and see your range of emotions to understand their range of emotions, you know, otherwise it's weird, isn't it? And then you're almost making a child feel shame by always being gentle if they are expressing anger or something. It's almost important for us to lead by example and show children how to do healthy anger, how to do healthy.
Well, I think what and I obviously I work with men and women, but like I'm speaking this, I'm thinking of a man as I'm saying this, and he's having with his children, and it's about authenticity, and and children can pick up on it for sure. They're very, so if you're being all calm, you're like raging inside and you're being all calm, they it's like gaslighting your kids in a way, because they can feel something's not right, but the words are thing. It's like, okay. But what and it's not to say, this isn't to say any form of hitting a child or anything is acceptable, but it's to be able to be like, and there's a lovely book called The Manual for Being Human by Sophie Mort. And what I was never taught as a kid is like, as an example, it's like, it looks like you're experiencing anger. Would you like to go for a run, talk it out, or punch and kick something, right?
Yeah.
And what that does is the kids go, oh, in the future, oh, this feeling, I know I've got an outlet for it, and therefore I'm not scared of it, and therefore I don't have behavioral issues. I've always done that with my
teenage boys. You know, I've got two adult sons and a teenager and a young son. But when they go through the teenage testosterone kind of pent up, I'm like, go for a run. That's what I just look at them, you need to go for a run, and then they do. And my eldest son would come home and go, I need a run. You know, he learned
at least
that feeling means that, and that's what you do.
But I would, if you can add to that, but before he goes for a run, sit down, sit with the emotion, take the fear out of the emotion, and be okay that it's okay to feel that, and then go for a run.
Yeah, I definitely learned that from this conversation.
I used to go for a kickbox because I was feeling something. Go kickboxing, get rid of it, and it worked. But that kept me in a loop, which was
still addiction, isn't it?
Yeah, ultimately, and it became it's using yang energy to get rid of yang, and it's like it doesn't work. You need yin to balance out the yang. So to be able to sit with it and be with it. And then obviously, you might be feeling tense because you've got adrenaline trapped in your body, then for sure, release it, definitely. But if you can sit with, and if you get taught that as a teenager, game changing, absolutely game changing.
Yeah. Well, actually, my children, you know, if I'm a little bit hormonal or something like that, they actually just ignore me. Like, they're so comfortable with me not being okay because they know that they're loved. They know that it's not on them. We've got, you know, because I've been quite authentic with my emotions, they're just they don't even respond. It's so funny. I've witnessed it, and I spoke to them about it the other day, and I said, you don't even respond, you just know. And they're like, yeah.
Which is great. Well, that's lovely.
Mom's just a bit hormonal, it's fine.
But I think that the authentic expression of like, and being with children, and if you're upset, if they're triggering you, which they're almost designed to do, that they'll trigger you, and you can say, yeah, I can feel that, I can feel anger rising within me, and I can feel like, mummy or daddy, I'm getting, there's that, I can feel I'm getting upset, because, and then go, I'm just going to go, and I need to release them and go into another room and have a shout, not at the kids, of course, but and kids are like up to the age of 7 they're being hypnotized essentially, and then they're just mimicking you. So if they can see and like a model of emotional freedom in that, and be like, okay, emotions there's nothing to be afraid of, because you have outlets for them and ways of talking about them. They will just have the same thing. And it sounds like your kids, as an example, when you said about, when you're feeling hormonal or whatever, they don't feel threatened by your,
they don't take it personally. They don't think it's anything to do with them. They just think, oh, mum's on one.
Which, if you then extrapolate that out into into a relationship, assuming that they went into a heterosexual relationship as an example, but with a woman that are on their bleed, and it's like, and it can be quite, as a man to navigate that space, particularly as a woman becomes more free with her emotions, the volatility of the energy that moves through them can be quite intense and quite a lot to hold. But what society needs is men, like those that identify as men, to be able to hold their own energy and be responsive, not reactive, so that they can hold the feminine in their full expression and enable them to feel safe to then to go into the full divinity of their expression, right? And so when we're in a society that can do that, life will be completely different.
I've always felt a real sense of responsibility, having 4 sons, to really let them understand the feminine, the female, what we go through. And so I've always been very open and honest about all of that side of life, because
beautiful.
They don't have a sister, they've just got, it's just boys. So I've been, because there's staggered age gaps, they've all witnessed the pregnancy and birthing process as well. They were all at home when their younger brothers were born and that kind of thing. So they're very, in fact, my 2 adult sons are almost a little bit annoyed. They're like, oh, mum's made us too soft. Because they're like really street now, and it's just a bit, but when they're with women, I know that
they'll
they
be able
understand.
to connect. They won't regret that when they actually can connect with women or people, but women, and actually have and be seen and be like available, like be emotionally available, because like women don't want performance, they don't want your productivity, they just want your presence. And as a man, to be able to recognize, oh shit, I haven't been, like, all the times we talked about with alcohol, and I wasn't fully present. Like I was, in the context of being in bed with someone, I was, sometimes, but then it was mostly, has she come yet? Am I performing right? What will she think of me? What will she tell her friends? It's all up here, right? So I'm not in my body. I'm not in
the ego as well, probably.
Exactly. And so the ability, and things like Emosh Pit, things like the talk that I'm doing at Elevate Festival will, if you are listening to this podcast before the festival, come along, because it will enable you with the tools and language to be able to express yourself more freely, and take the fear out of expressing emotions. Because when you know that it's all, essentially, we're all energy, and it's the law of vibration that dictates everything, you will stop
emotion.
Exactly. Oh yeah, on that energy and motion, right? So emotion, energy and motion, most people confuse feelings with the motion part of that sentence. So the motion, so sadness has a motion to it, which is right, and anger has a motion to it, which is, and so, but before the emotion is just energy. So if it comes through you in or whichever, right, we have a problem in society is that men get conditioned out of the and women get conditioned out of the Therefore, what happens is that the energy that wants to move through us and ground fully can't, because it's like the wrong tool for the job. Like the frequency of the anger and the frequency of the sadness needs to leave our body in the we need to be able to grieve things, we need to be able to let things go and do it. And so
you always feel amazing after a good cry. Just lighter, the feeling that caused it is gone. It's I love that feeling just after a really good cry. It's like, oh.
When was the last time you cried?
Oh, I cry all the time. I cried this morning. I cried this morning because I saw that the last white rhino had died. And when I was about 19, I used to sort of fight a little bit for saving the white rhinos. I used to talk about them a lot. And then one of my friends said, Jenna, why don't you do something about it? So I did. And then I saw that the last one had died, and I really felt the emotion, but it was for my 19-year-old self. And I feel it. I let it come all the time.
I think I've had a tear come through this year, but prior to that, like, I don't, like, I'm still learning or unlearning the ability to, to allow grief properly and allow crying to come through. And it's because it's taken, however many years of conditioning. There was times where I hadn't cried for like 5 years, and so some men out there, like, you imagine the relief you get when you cry. men don't get that relief.
I know. I feel so strongly about men's mental health. I've got 4 sons and a brother and lots of male cousins, and very male dominated family. And I do, yeah, I mean, this is why I run an online community with Inspective Edge for young men, you know, because I just feel so strongly that they don't get, it's much easier for women to go through these processes.
It is with regards to sadness. A lot of the women that I work with generally, like if I was to boil it down and distill it, it would be I work with sad men that get angry and angry women that get sad. Like there's a lot of women are very angry, and it's not just in this lifetime. There's a lot of ancestral stuff that's come down and that wants to come through it now, and we have the space in essence to start it happening. And I'm very passionate about this subject because I believe that at this point in time, as the men in the world aren't emotionally enabled enough to be able to hold their own energy, therefore enable the feminine to feel safe, right? And therefore the energy that needs to come through them isn't able to, and therefore it finds the next hole, or the easiest hole, which would be children, because they are emotionally free generally. And so when we see a massive rise in ADHD and all these behavioral issues, is because there's too much energy going through the kids, right? And that's because men aren't enabled to be able to hold their own energy, and therefore the women can't. And so, as I said, it has to go somewhere because energy has to. Yeah. And so, in the talk that I do, as I said, it touches on all these things to enable and to inspire people to take a step onto the journey of doing the shadow work. It's like taking radical responsibility, but just responsibility for your part in this, in your own. And it's like Gandhi says, be the change, right? And so you need to, and I'm going to get rid of the words of need, but to make the choice to step into the way of being where you feel and go into your kinks in your hose pipe, your shadow work, to become emotionally freer. You're not only going to improve your life dramatically, but you're doing your bit for society, because you're grounding the quote unquote negative energies out of the world. And we're seeing the effect of too much energy and anger and all that, the unprocessed stuff. Yeah. And there's quite a few men in the world that are essentially little boys that have never been through the process of doing what, and they've got their thumb on a big red button, and it's like they're dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that needs to stop. And the way to stop it is to take responsibility for your own being, how you are, and then do the work, which I've just said, and understand that when you raise your when you let go of the conditioning, you raise your vibration. And if we all do that, the whole of collective consciousness raises. And then we're in a very different place.
Now you're speaking my language. This is it. And this is what Elevate is all about. It's about, if we can get those that are ready in one field together, doing this work, connecting on that vibration together, then the ripples spread, you know, and that's what it's all about.
Awesome. That's why I'm happy to be involved.
Really happy to have you there, because you're doing such awesome work. Where can people find you?
So you can just Google my name. So it's Adam Slawson, so it's adamslawson.com for my coaching. And then it's that on Instagram as well. And then if you want to follow Plight Club and be part of the community that is united by vulnerability and fueled by freedom, just grab yourself a t-shirt. And the first rule of Plight Club is that you do talk about it. So it's encouraging conversation in that way. And it's all about frequency. It's all about raising your vibration through enabling yourself to talk about how you feel and express yourself ultimately. And that is Plight Club HQ on Instagram and plightclub.co.uk online. Just search Plight Club.
Yeah, well, I'll put those links in the podcast description.
Yes, awesome.
Yes, amazing. Well, I can't wait for your workshop at Elevate this summer.
It's on Friday, right? Is it the Friday?
I think you're the Friday. Yes, I think so, because you're also doing Boomtown as well.
Yes, on the same weekend. It's going to
for those that are going to be there instead. Two completely polarities of
a very different workshop, different places. I'm actually going to Boomtown as a guest, so this time, and just having a weekend off. Well, of work. So, but I'm absolutely honored to be part of Elevate, and how we've come together, and what you're doing in the world is amazing. I'm very happy to support it, and I look forward to, because I think my talk, and then we're doing Emosh Pit straight after it. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I've actually just secured another venue for the festival, because we were getting I'll talk to you about that, but I think we can do different times so that you have a little bit of a break in between.
Well, let's discuss it, because actually it might actually be beneficial to go from straight into the other, and it might be easier for programming as well.
Yeah, okay. As you can see, there's last minute things happening. There's been such that you know, I've been feeling like a magnet, and I'm just attracting so much in for the festival is, that it's been quite, when I thought the program was done,
Yeah, there's
and
loads of
I've
people
just
turn up.
added another day, because it was like, oh well, we might as well get people there on the Thursday night and have this amazing galactivation that my friend's doing.
Nice.
So
So it's Thursday. It's Thursday to Sunday or Thursday to Monday.
yeah, it's now going to be the Thursday to the Sunday, but people will probably go home on the Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Fair play.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
So
Sounds fun. Wicked.
amazing. Oh, well, thank you for talking to me today, and I will speak to you soon.
Awesome. See you later.